Hey everyone, Goopagit here, with a video in response to something Peter Dinkledge has said about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. About how there is not enough representation about dwarfism in mainstream media, and that the ones they are pretty much jokes and shouldn't be, and Fantasy Dwarf shouldn't be there, and all that. And so, in some parts, I agree with that. There should be more representation about dwarfism in mainstream media. Something a kid could hold on to, sort of like Black Panther was for African American children. They finally had representation, and I think dwarves need that. And we had that a bit with Peter Dinkledge's characters in Game of Thrones, but that wasn't as widespread as like Marvel movies or what have you. So I think it'd be really good if something like that existed. Even if it was something like an everyday dwarf, you know, the working class dwarf, shall we say. I think that would educate a lot more people, especially a lot more than those silly reality TV shows that I loathe. So I think I agree with him there. There should be more representation like that in media. But I disagree with him that there shouldn't be fantasy dwarves either, because then that's kind of boring. I mean, there's fantasy humans, right? There's superheroes. There's other types of, fantasy things, like talking dogs, You gotta realize that it's fantasy. So, fantasy dwarves, I think, have a place in, media in that way. And as long as we're not, as long as it's not offensive, and I guess what's offensive may be different to each individual. So I think there should be that fantasy dwarf character, but not in an offensive way. And characters like Oompa Loompas and such, they're, I like them, You gotta be able to laugh at yourself a little bit. But something like dwarf tossing, that's too much. That's too far on the limit, I think, So, in some senses, like I said, I agree with him that we need more representation. But the representation we currently have isn't the worst. What I think dwarfism needs is a show like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where they had topics about their minority being African American, and they sometimes dealt with them seriously, but, they also were able to poke fun at some things. I think a really good example of this is the episode where Will and Carlton are driving a really fancy car, and the police think they stole it. And so there's some comedy in that, but it's a real thing, and they address it seriously near the end. So I think that's really, important. So something like that would be great for dwarfism, and really a lot of other minorities. But what are your thoughts on this kind of thing? Do you agree with me? Do you agree with Peter Dinkledge? Or do you have your own take? And I'd love to hear from anyone, not just a dwarf or, anyone. Or anyone with a disability or a minority or whatever. Let me know in the comments, whoever you are. And please like and subscribe if you like this video. And as always, stay punny.